background about the University of North Alabama, and then Dr. Florin will talk about the research they're doing in data analytics and their degree program. I'll come back and talk just briefly about the computer science departments and the research we're doing here at North Alabama. And then we'll get into the scholarships, because that's what you're all here about is money, 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 money. So we are at the University of North Alabama. We do have two programs, both data analytics degree as well as computer science, information technology, and computer information systems. Both of those are part of the Sanders College of Business and Technology. We are one of the largest business schools in university system of Alabama. Our master's program and our MBA program is the largest in Alabama. It's even larger than Alabama's and Auburn's combined MBA program. Just kind of give you a scope. Yes, we're a small school up north, but we are fairly large as far as our business programs go. We have primarily the two departments. We don't talk about accounting, even though I'm married to one, just because, well, if you're accounting, you're an accountant. Let's just be honest. But we do have the Department of Computer Science and Information Systems, and then we also have the Finance, Economic, and Data Analysis, or Data Analytics, excuse me, departments as well. The data analytics degree is brand new and very cutting edge as far as what you've been learning this summer. And then our computer science programs, we are talk a little bit further about that soon, but we've also been reworking those to provide more hands-on and existential learning. So with that, Dr. Florin, if you'd like to, here's the data analytics.
Sure. So again, my name's Dr. Michael Florin. It's very nice to meet y'all. Thanks for having us today. Yeah, so I'm here on behalf of our UNA Data Analytics Department. I'm going to talk some about our data analytics, but I thought too I'd talk a little bit about some background just to give y'all a feel for what it is we do, what it is some of our students do, both in the program and outside of the program. So I think Dr. Puckett has on here a couple of our newer things, a Center for Sports Analytics. I'll get into that in a little bit. It's kind of fun. A finance research lab that's incorporating data analytics. So finance data analytics research lab, they're talking about building up and getting a whole bunch of new tech for, and Dr. Puckett's actually does a lot of stuff with some of that tech. I hope he gets to talk about that later today too. My background's a little bit interesting. I was actually a math teacher. I was a high school math teacher back in the day. I taught high school math in inner city Denver and never really knew what data was. I don't know if y'all felt yourself in that category maybe earlier this summer, but what on earth is data analysis? What is statistics? Artificial intelligence, man, that sounds really scary. Like, I don't really know what any of these things are. Chat GPT sounds pretty cool, though. So I don't know if y'all felt yourselves in any of these categories, but that's completely where I started. For me, what drove me to this field was really finding people using numbers in a way that just didn't make sense. And I consistently tell people that my job is numbers, yes, but it's a lot more about just thinking through things in a logical way. And for me, and sitting through meetings, and I've been fortunate enough in my career to sit with the Secretary of Health in a meeting and just be able to make some comments and say, I get that sounds interesting, but what if we looked at it this way? And have everybody in the room, all of whom are way smarter than me, start to nod their heads and see United States policy change based on this random comment in the middle of a meeting and realize, gosh, if I weren't here, we wouldn't have caught that. And more, I realized that this becomes less and less about data, and it becomes more and more about decision making. Our department chair, somebody I respect greatly, has a great quote: "Statistics is the art of decision making under uncertainty." And I quite like that, because essentially we never know what's going on in the underlying fundamental processes. We collect data to try to represent and model that. But our goal is to make decisions about this underlying process, and that can be be quite fun. So that's a bit of my background. I work in data analytics. I am the director of research services at a consulting company called Practical Statistics, and then also a tenured professor of data analytics here at UNA. And so I work with a lot of different clients. This morning I was talking about drone delivery. How can we improve drone delivery of packages? What can we do? What can we not do? What are some data implications about usage pickup, and how can we even format how that's going to work? How do we get the drones to run? But also, how do we fund that? How do we pay for that? The other day, just yesterday, actually, I was working with a doctorate student who was doing their research on cancer, and they were talking about prostate cancer and how we can reduce prostate cancer. And funnily enough, we were studying a policy that when the policy was active, we had a 5% reduction in prostate cancer severity. So we had this serious prostate cancer, we had this non-serious prostate cancer, we had a 5% reduction in that just by doing a policy. And gosh, wouldn't it be great to do more policies like that as we look in healthcare? I'm consulting with a large business. I, for confidentiality, won't say their name. I will say that many major brands that you hear have this business do a lot of their marketing and advertising. And essentially what we're looking at is, can we incorporate AI into the process? And are doing a whole bunch of analytics on the back end to determine AI uptake into the marketing process, and having to make decisions there. In each of these things, to me, the cool part about data analytics is the data, yes, and I get to be a data nerd, and I get to play around with numbers and equations and computers and use cool tech to do everything. But it's ultimately has to come to a decision. I ultimately have to say, well, how do I get from A to B? So we see this pattern in the data. Is it really due to the policy, or could it be due to something else? We see this drone delivery uptake seem to look promising, but how can we determine that? And what are the steps that we need to do? So it goes outside of just using a super cool cluster mapping algorithm. And it goes, again, a lot more to how can we make decisions and in these different contexts. I'll be honest, to me, this is one of my favorite things about our program at North Alabama, is because we work with a ton of different people. Dr. Puckett and I come from completely different backgrounds, but we work on some of the same things, and we get to have some of these fun conversations. When I look at our data analytics program, gosh, we have one guy who hacked, I'm saying hacked, loosely speaking. He figured out some cool stats algorithms, he and a buddy of his, and they used it in gambling, and they won millions of dollars, quite literally. So if you've ever heard of DraftKings, they essentially hacked DraftKings and won millions and millions of dollars by predicting accurately who was going to win football championships. They won the Big Pick football championship like 3 years in a row and got $1 million payout for each one of those things. That's one of our faculty members. You've got lowly old me. I just work on contracts, but I work with a lot of federal agencies these days. Got my first international contract, which is kind of fun, a little intimidating, but kind of fun to work internationally and in different languages, which is new for me. But also work with Department of Health and Human Services. We work with the a variety of state departments. Some of our students, actually one of my students last year did an internship with the Colorado Department of Health, just to go and see how can we use data in public health settings. Work with a lot of hospitals on medical research, et cetera. And then my wife is in public health, so we do a lot of public health and, of course, education, because I'm still kind of a teacher occasionally. And then our other main faculty member that we have in data analytics works on DoD contracts. She works on a lot of clearance required stuff and works with a lot of people out of Huntsville. Everybody here's from Alabama, right? I moved here just a couple years ago, so I'm still getting used to it. I apologize. But y'all know where Huntsville is. That's good. So works on Huntsville. It's about an hour away from us here at UNA, and works with those individuals on a lot of secret projects that she can't always tell me about. All I know is she goes and presents at the UN every year and does the NATO conferences. And that's just really cool stuff to see where her analytics are being used. I say all this to say, for me, data analytics is cool. There's a great quote about statistics. It's fun because you get to play in everybody's backyard. And for me, that's my favorite thing about it. Um, I love being able to do what I'm good at in a whole bunch of situations. That's why I love consulting. I get to work with everybody all the time, and it's so fun to be able to study gorillas one day and drone delivery another day, and then do everything in between. I really, really love it. And so for this, I really think that, data analytics, a lot of it is consistent. We always deal with data, we always do analysis. This idea of decision making with data, this idea of prediction or explanation, and different algorithms and computing techniques to get to these things. But ultimately, the cool part about it is the variety of different applications. And for me, it's my favorite part about what we do here, is because, again, everybody's got to teach the same stats algorithm. We're going to all use the same couple of packages, and you might prefer Python, and you might prefer R, and you might be a crazy person who prefers coding in C. I don't know, maybe that's Dr. Puckett. But essentially, we're all going to do a lot of the same things. The cool part about what we can do, though, is the different context that we can implement it in, and the different decisions that we can come to if we look at it from these different perspectives. So here we have a couple of things on the screen. I mentioned the Center for Sports Analytics. So that guy who made millions gambling on football and baseball and basketball, he runs sports analytics at our center. And so you can come and learn from him and do internships with him, where essentially you'll pick up sports teams. You'll do UNA sports teams, or if you prefer, you can study national teams and figure out how can we determine patterns here, and what can we do and learn. Our finance research lab is a cool place. And I'll say, before I came to UNA, I didn't do a lot of business finance research, but that's one of the cool parts of data analytics. I can have never done that, and in a few years kind of pick it up because the analytics techniques are so similar. What's new is the context and the decision making to be made in there. So finance research is a super cool place. Recently, you've heard of things like supply chain. You've heard of blockchain, of course. I'm sure through your program, playing around with some of those technologies. Dr. Puckett might mention some of that later. But there's a ton of other things with finance. Let's talk about things like inflation. Let's talk about things like the GDP. Let's talk about things like growth and debt, and how can we assess these things? How can we predict these things? And so a lot of this, and of course, if you want to play the stock market, let's invest in Bitcoin. Should we invest in Bitcoin? And of course, I'm not a financial investor, so don't take any advice from me. But a lot of fun things that we can do with analytics, and that's essentially what the Finance Research Lab is intended to be, is a place that we can focus on financial applications of data analysis and research and statistics there. So again, for me, that's kind of my background and pitch on data analytics. I appreciate you pulling this up, Dr. Puckett, and yeah, I hope you consider it. It's pretty fun, and it's a pretty cool field to get into wherever you go.
And while we're here, does anyone have any questions for Dr. Florin or about data analytics before we move on to the other area? Okay, well, we'll come back to questions a little bit later then. And so our next one is, we're going to talk a little bit about the computer science and information systems degrees we have at UNA. So we do have 3 different degrees. One is a Bachelor of Science, which is ABET accredited in computer science. We also have a Bachelor of Science in information technology. The difference between those two, computer science is hardcore programming. So you learn languages and memory and actually algorithms and how to write programs at a deeper level. Information technology is more of a hands-on type of degree, where it's focused like on cybersecurity. We have another concentration in HCI or UX, that's user experience, the human interface, how to design the Apple phone and make it look good, functional, easy to use. And then we also have another concentration in software development. And this type of software development would be going to work for a company. Let's say you go work for a bank or a human resources company or even some company in Huntsville, and you're having to write software to generate reports or to interface with larger mainframe systems. And so that's his specialty in software development. And then we have a BBA, Computer Information Systems, and that's a Bachelor of Business Administration. We are, as a university, AACSB accredited. That's the highest business accreditation for a college or university you can get. So we're right up there, of course, with UNA and Auburn and all the other business schools that you really think of. We have the same accreditation. So within these degrees, you can actually then do concentration specifically. As an example, cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, we do a lot of hands-on research on how to automate and capture cybersecurity criminals. So I teach the digital forensics course, which is a really fun course, where we learn how to actually do digital and data forensics. And we utilize, believe it or not, a lot of ChatGPT and other AI tools to do that. And so part of my class is we're using AI technologies to analyze firewall logs, looking at actual data that's stored on computers. We even teach hacking in these classes so that if you're an investigator, as an example, working for a police department or the FBI, how do you break into a phone to collect information off of that? Assuming, of course, you have a warrant and you can do that legally, but then analyzing that data to catch nefarious people. And so part of our labs, as an example, is we have a cybersecurity lab with servers set up, and I go in and I put my black hat on and do nefarious things to the servers. And the students actually have to go in there, log in, do analysis to try and catch me. And so we have a lot of fun with that. The HCI UX lab, if you have a technical mind, but you also really enjoy art or design or engineering design, that's a great one as well, because it's really helping you figure out ways to design the next graphical user interface, if you will. And so they'll actually bring in Lockheed Martin as an example, or Raytheon will have a new cockpit design for their latest fighter. And they'll bring it in, and the students in the class actually have to start looking at how do we lay out buttons and controls, and then the graphics that show up on the screens, and how that all interacts together. And we already talked a little bit about the software development. So the computer information systems themselves, this is primarily where you're going into work as kind of an IT expert at a company. So you may go work for an accounting company and having to manage large databases and manage different network systems and things like that. So a little background on myself. I am new to academia. I've only been teaching at UNA for 5 years. I went back at 50 years old and got my PhD in computer engineering. So I'm an old dog that learned some new tricks. And I did it in 2 years, and I had a 4.0. Woohoo! So those younger pups that were in the class with me were not too thrilled when I'd blow the exams. But anyway, enough patting myself on the back. Just proud that an old man could do that still. Before that, my undergraduates, actually, I've got a BS in physics from Auburn. I've got a master's in electrical engineering from UAB. And used to work for a little company called Southern Company and did a lot of work in their R&D group before I decided I wanted to start my own business. And so I built the first wireless internet service provider in Alabama. Sold that to a little company called TechLinks that sold it to a big company a few years later for $80 million. So since then, I've probably had about 12 different companies that I've started or been a part of over the last 30 years. I've worked in 12 countries. I've done consulting, a lot of consulting in China and Europe. in Mexico as well as the United States on fiber optic and network communications. I hold the world's longest microwave link in LA. I've got a 10 gigabit wireless microwave link in downtown LA at 2.38 miles, and no one's been able to beat that yet so far. But my real passion is students. So I talked about these companies. So the last 25 years, my wife and I, she's a CPA and accountant. And so we would start up a company and then get a research contract from companies or from the government, and then hire students, even high school students such as yourself, to come in and work on those projects. It does two things. One, it gives great experience to students to determine, do I really want to go in this field or do I want to go somewhere else? So they get a real world experience of working on projects from major research areas. But then the other piece of it was the companies then have really great opportunities to find these students early in their career and either hire them from me, which happened a lot, or follow them through graduation and then hire them. And so we've had over 85 students that have worked with us over the years. Many of them I still stay in contact with because I never know I might need a job. So I actually had two that came back and hired me as a consultant later in their careers, which was pretty cool. But they got to work on all kinds of different projects. And a lot of the things that we did were based around software and hardware, integration of those two things to solve problems. And so right now at UNA, what we do is we work with undergraduate students. A lot of universities do not have undergraduate research, or it's very, very limited. It's usually saved for the graduate students and above. Well, at UNA, we really promote a lot of undergraduate research. In fact, undergraduate students can get paid to do research. So if you find an area you're really interested in, you can actually apply. Majority of the students actually get the funds to do the research. And then for the College of Business, our dean and even our new dean that's coming in this fall are very supportive of students going to conferences and publishing papers. So they will actually pay your way to go to a conference. So this spring over in North Carolina at the IEEE, which is the Institute for Electrical and Electronic Engineers, I'm taking about 4 students that have been working on an AI project this summer, and they're going to present their research as an undergraduate student, which actually gets to count towards their master's program down the road if they'd like to. So UNA, even though, like I said, we're a little bit smaller, it allows us to be very agile in working on special projects and getting students, even as freshmen, into research opportunities immediately. And if you're not interested in that area, we can find some others. So I already mentioned our cybersecurity research. We also have Linux and networking research, looking at servers and networking, how it can communicate to different types of systems and systems engineering. But what you really want to know is our AI and machine learning research. So we have over about $200,000 worth of servers that we have purchased and brought in with GPUs to do machine learning and AI research. So what does that really look like? Well, most of you use ChatGPT. And if you haven't, start looking at it because it is kind of going to be a game changer in business and work as you move forward. Just don't let it write your papers and turn them in, okay? Still use your own brains because you don't want the AI smarter than you. But the AI research we're doing right now is ChatGPT is this monster. It's a great tool. It works really, really well for what it does. But businesses have been caught uploading, employees specifically, classified information to ChatGPT that then ChatGPT integrated into its own model. So Samsung, Lockheed Martin, and a few other companies had employees that went to confidential meetings, took notes, uploaded them ChatGPT so it could write a nice report for them. But then if you knew how to actually pull information out, you could pull that information out of ChatGPT. So now businesses are like, whoa, we can't do this. For you software developers, if you've ever used ChatGPT to write a program, it is unbelievable, especially Python. It does an exceptionally good job at writing programs for you. Well, that's great for you and me if we're just using it personally. But if I'm a multi-million-dollar company and I have an employee write a program using ChatGPT, well, now there's license issues. Because what if the program we got had a special license that it was trained on? Because ChatGPT got all of GitHub pretty much and trained on it. So that if you use it as a business, now whoever wrote that program that ChatGPT used to train itself could sue you. And we're starting to see those lawsuits come through. So now companies are like, I'm not going to use any of these tools to have computer science license issues that may get us sued. So our thought process with our research is, how can we take a ChatGPT and create mini brains for businesses? So we're using open source different AI models and testing them. We got Grok 1. I don't know if you know that one. That's Twitter's AI that Elon Musk has released. We got it working, but it's too expensive to run. It's heavy. It's just a mess. So we have Open Llama. We're working on OpenGPT. So we're taking all these different models, loading them on the servers to determine which ones can we use for specialty programs within a business. So how many of you have your favorite books of knowledge that you always go to? Okay. For Dr. Florin and I, we have our different books that we really go to and use a lot. Well, what if you could actually take that entire library and upload it into your own personal AI? And now you have all those ebooks that your AI is trained on. And I can then use that AI to query to pull out all that information for me that I need instead of going and flipping through to find what chapter and everything else. Well, from a business perspective, we can do that same thing. So I'll give you an example. A local engineering company, they do drones for forest and oil. There's 8 people in the company, 4 in Alabama and 4 in Texas. Well, their customers were complaining because they didn't have a 24/7 customer service help desk. So we actually took an AI model, took all of their customer emails from their technical support group, took all their documents for engineering and all their user guides and trained an AI model for it. It took us about 30 minutes to do that. Then we created a web interface using ChatGPT actually to create the web interface program. And now they have a 24/7 customer service system that can answer 98% of the questions that customers have because they had collected all that data. Now, how much value is that to a company? Well, for them, it was going to cost them $240,000 a year to hire the right people to be able to man the phones, to be able to provide 24/7. So we did it for less than probably about $15 a month is all they're going to have to pay. Okay. That's a huge game changer. And by the way, the AI model works better than the people because it already has all the answers from past issues. So those are some of the things that we're working on in our AI labs, is looking to create a brain, a body of knowledge for a business, that business then continues to grow. You have one for human resources, you have another one for accounting, you have one for engineering. And then we're working on a bigger model that limits what knowledge you're allowed to have based on who you are as a user. So if you're the CEO, you get 100% of it. But if I'm in accounting, I can't see what engineering is doing, and engineering can't see what finance is doing. And yet this whole body of knowledge is still there reading through each other. One other area we're really, really excited about is utilizing AI for podcasts. So I have a student this summer who is looking at creating a body of knowledge from podcasts. And you all probably listen to podcasts or YouTube videos. Well, what if you could actually take those and capture all that information and train an AI model that you can then chat with? And then it could actually point you back to a podcast or YouTube video that you might want to go see to get further information about. So we had a local celebrity who has had a radio show since the 1990s, interviewing business and technology experts. So we're talking 30 years worth of podcasts. There's about 15,000 of them. And so we're converting those over using AI to text, then using a second AI model to determine who the speakers are. And so we'll actually have the interviewer and the interviewee. Then we're actually using a third AI to go in and use the metadata that's associated with each one of those to pull that information together into a searchable database, if you will. Then we're going to take all that information and train an AI. So now you have a research body of knowledge on the last 30 years of business and technology and finance from experts that he's interviewed through the years. So for doing historic research about Bitcoin, as an example, he did a whole series over 30 years about Bitcoin. Well, now you could query to determine trends and analysis of where Bitcoin went up, down, how it was interacted with, and pull all that information together into a simple query. So that's kind of where we're doing some of the research. We do a lot of, also we do research in things called Internet of Things, sensor technologies, as well as, of course, cybersecurity analysis. So any questions?
I have a broad question about just one of the programs at UNA.
Sure.
So I looked up the business school at UNA, and I see the data analytics degree, but I also see the create your own degree. Do you
Yes.
know anything about that? And could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So that degree is, in essence, it is a menu, and you get to pick and choose what you want. So you still have your core requirements that you have to do, your Englishes, some maths, and things like that. But outside of that, you have an advisor that specializes in that area of pick and choose. So as an example, I actually have a lot of students that are in our innovation and entrepreneurship program that are not getting a degree in innovation entrepreneurship, but what they're doing is they will know they want to have their own business one day. And so they're taking the innovation entrepreneurship classes, some accounting classes, some marketing classes, and then technology classes, because they want to go into technology consulting. And so they still end up with their bachelor's of science, but it's the courses and things aren't structured like a traditional program. And so UNA does offer that program. It is one of the more unique areas that we have. And in essence, you can pretty much mix any programs you have at UNA. So you can mix nursing with data analytics. I've got one student that's actually doing that because she wants to go into healthcare management and get her MBA in healthcare management. So she's mixing those two together. So yeah, it's a pretty cool program.
So is it all like limited to certain classes, or is it any class?
It's pretty much any class. Like I said, as long as you meet certain core requirements for that bachelor degree, so your histories, your Englishes, things like that, everything outside of that is pretty much between you and your advisor.
All right, thank you.
If you go on una.edu where you found that information, there's a contact name and email. Feel free to reach out to them and they can give you great information, some more paperwork, if you will, on how that program works.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question. For I someday I want to create my own business, and I've been planning on going into computer science. So I know you have a little bit of experience of creating your own businesses or working with new startups. And so I was wondering what like best major or minor or other degrees to pair with computer science to get my ultimate outcome.
Yeah, so if you're truly willing to go into consulting or going into starting your own business, let's say you want to build your own software house or your own AI software development class, getting your core degree in that expertise. So in your case, it'd be BS in computer science, but then get a minor in like accounting. Take some finance, accounting, and marketing classes, and that's going to be a really good support, because what you want to do then is get an MBA after that. So if you really want to go into business, be successful, run your own business, and be more than just the technology person behind it, is look at that next step of going ahead and getting your MBA, which is very easy at UNA to do because you can actually continue on your program from your undergraduate directly into your graduate program. But yeah, you want that core degree to be in your expertise, whether it's data analytics or computer science or information technology, and then seed in some other classes, accounting 1 and 2, your marketing and finance. Dr. Florin?
Add to that and say, if possible, at the institution you eventually go, checking out entrepreneurship courses is going to be helpful too, because these are courses that are really going to help to drive you to understand, well, what does it look like to start something new on a business front? One of the awkward things about starting your own company is you have to offer value to people in a way that they can understand. I'm a big fan of marketing as a huge, good class to take, because you can have the best product ever, and if you do a bad job of marketing it, nobody's ever going to want to get it. So oddly, marketing is a good thing to be good at, or to have a friend who's really good at, who can do it for you to make that take off. And I think actually, if you look at a lot of tech explosions, they tend to have somebody who's good at putting a good spin on things, because it's so helpful to do. I'll say at UNA, of course, I get to say this easily because we have our Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center that has a ton of resources at its back. And so that's something, again, that I think is really, really good to consider if you have the opportunity to, because it's a different way to think about it, right, than your normal computer science class. And that's what the idea for innovation, entrepreneurship, or whatever the university you go to calls it, that's going to be the helper there to help you start to think about it in those other terms, not just the technical problem solving terms, which are great in the content expertise, but in the contribution terms, which is going to be where innovation and entrepreneurship can really help.
Yeah, absolutely. I teach the first of the innovation and entrepreneurship classes as well, because I have ran businesses in the past, and we do have a actual degree in innovation and entrepreneurship. We have 2 segments of that. One is for actually starting your own business, and the other is for creating new products within an industry or a company, looking at innovation from there. And part of that is UNA has a 6,000 square foot makerspace, free for all the students to use. We pay pretty much for all the supplies as well. And it's called The Generator. It's part of our Joel R. Anderson Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurial Studies. And what a makerspace allows you to do is to come in and try out new things, create your products, create new ideas. So we have a laser cutter and etcher that is really cool and a lot of fun to do. We have vinyl cutters, industrial sewing machines, every woodworking tool you could ever think of. We have a complete electronics fabrication lab, welding, and then our really cool toy is we have a really nice water jet cutter, which will cut like 6 inches of plate steel, or anything else that you could think of. In fact, it would actually cut diamond if you could get it in there and hold it, had one big enough to cut. But it's a really neat thing. And so Mitch Ham's the director of that. He works with students to help them start their own business, to create new products, or just come in and learn a new skill. And so we have a lot of that success with that program. We've launched quite a few student businesses out of the Generator. And one of the other neat things about UNA and the Shoals and overall is they're very entrepreneurially minded. So every year we have something called Idea Audition. And this is where anybody in the community, including students, come in and they pitch an idea, just like you'd see on Shark Tank. So I'm going to pitch a new idea for a new business or a new product, or really just for anything. And then a group of judges go through and pick out the 5 finalists. And then the finalists go on to compete and pitch their ideas. And usually the jackpots are $5,000, $2,500, and I think $1,000 for first, second, and third place. And just because I really like to brag about our students, every year I've had at least one student, if not 2, either win or come in second place of my students that go in and pitch. And then we have a second idea audition. It's a step up from that when you're actually pitching your business idea. And that one you can win up to $15,000. I've had several students actually win that as well. And that money is used then to start your business and get you going. And then if you win that one, you can go to Alabama State one and win up to $150,000, and on and on and on you go. So there's a lot of neat opportunities there, especially if you're entrepreneurially minded. And so that's kind of unique to the Shoals area. Speaking of money, let's talk a little bit about scholarships. So in our computer science and data analytics degrees, we actually have a special scholarship called Scholarships of Distinction. And it is 3 tiers. So if you get all the way up to the gold, I believe everything's pretty much covered for the most part. It's very close to full tuition, housing, and food, and even some money left over books. And then you have a silver tier and the 3rd tier, I forget what it is. But each one of those provides scholarship funds each semester for you. And if you'll notice, our minimum is a 3.0 high school GPA or a 24 ACT composite. Now, what's a composite ACT score? What that means is you take the highest ACT score for each individual piece, for math, for reading, for science. Okay, and you take each one of those individually as the highest score and add those together. So a lot of universities are moving to this model. Some still have whatever your overall highest ACT score was. But for us, we're using that composite score. We also, if you're a transfer student, you only have to have a 3.0 GPA in your coursework to apply for the scholarship. Now, what you have to do for the scholarship is you do have to provide your resume, your transcripts, your ACT scores, but also a video about you that differentiates you about things that you've done, the clubs you're a part of, your extracurricular work, what work you're actually doing. Are you actually working out in the field or have a job? And so this is our premier scholarship that you would want to do if you're looking at one of these degrees. And you can find out more here, and we'll share the slides so that you can have them for later to go to these links. Now, for fall 2024, the scholarships, I think, have already been done. But if you're looking to apply for fall 2025, you need to apply before June 1st. So that's one scholarship. The second one is the Coles Honor College Scholarship. So majority of you would have no problems, I would think, getting into our honors college. And what's really great about the Coles Honor College is, again, it's a minimum 24 ACT. They look at other things other than just your grades, okay? They're going to look at what leadership areas you've had, areas of service, your extracurricular activities. They're going to look at all of that. So even if you didn't have the greatest grades, maybe your ACT score is not a 28 or a 30, that doesn't mean you still can't get in it. I've got, in fact, some students of mine that were Eagle Scouts that came up to UNA, some Eagle Scouts of ours, got full honors college scholarships, even though they didn't have the greatest grades. They still had pretty good ones at a minimum 24 ACT. So you actually get $650 per semester, but the key thing is your housing scholarship. So with a Coles Honor College, you get up to $4,000 per year for housing on campus. And so you can stack this scholarship with any other scholarships you have. So that means that even if you didn't get the premier scholarship for the degree, or the UNA's other scholarships, you can still get housing and tuition scholarships stacked on top through the Coles Honor College. Now, there are some requirements. As an example, you have to keep a certain GPA. It's not impossible to do. And if you mess up a semester, they give you a semester to bring it back up and reinstate into the honors college. So there's some really neat things that they do as well, such as for existential learning. In other words, going out of the country on trips. They help provide scholarships for that. And then our Sanders College of Business and Technology also provides scholarship opportunities for going overseas to our trips internationally. So we usually have somewhere between 10 to 12, anywhere from a week to 4 weeks, sometimes 5 weeks of international travel for students. As an example, our innovation entrepreneurship led by Mitch Ham this year went over for 3.5, almost 4 weeks through Europe, looking at small businesses and innovation that's being done in Europe. We've had computer science students go over to Japan. So there's a lot of different opportunities. I know this next summer we're going to Australia, Korea, Japan, England, and several places in Europe. And typically those, after the scholarships and everything else, usually cost the student somewhere between $1,000 to $2,000. So you tell me anywhere else that you can go get a 2 to 4 week trip to Europe where everything else is covered for about $2,000, including airfare. And you also get international business credit for those as well. So that's it on our side as far as presentation. So we'll just open it up to whatever questions you may have.
So your program, your startup program to help people launch businesses, I forgot the name of it. Could you talk a little bit more about that and how it works?
Yeah, so it's called Idea Audition, and it's through the Shoals area. So the Shoals is part of 4 cities in North Alabama. And it's probably even larger than 4 cities, but we consider it the 4 cities. And so we have something called the Shoals Economic Development Authority, and they come in and provide the funding along with sponsors from banks and other entities to provide startup funds for winners of Idea Audition or for our pitch contests. And so all you have to do is when that comes available, you just send in a video and a synopsis of what your idea is. And then they go through and set up a time for you to do a live presentation. And then if you're picked from that group, then you continue on to the finals. And if you win, like as an example, one of my students won $2,500 this past spring. He used that money to actually pay his tuition because you don't have to use that money for a business. Now, if you win the actual pitch contest, $15,000, that one you do have to use it. But we have a lot of mentors and others that work with you to help you get your business going.
All right, thank you.
And on another note, we do have something we call Smart Start Weekend that we do every semester. Smart Start Weekend is basically you create a complete business pitch in 24 hours over 2 days. So we work on Friday through Saturday, and then Saturday night, we have local investors and entrepreneurs that come in and you pitch your ideas to them. And a lot of times we even have some of those people invest in companies and get started. So about 3 years ago, we had a student who was a bass fisherman from our bass fishing team who was finding a lot of problems with the electronics on his boat. Well, he came up with a new wiring harness that solved all that problem. And he pitched his idea, happened to be one of the investor entrepreneurs there was connected really good to Bass Pro Shops and Hummingbird. And now he's clearing, I think, about $2.5 million a year with his little boat wiring thing harness that he came up with. Got it patented, and so he's having a great time with that. So if you got a great idea, there's definitely money out there and people to help you get started.
I love that. Fernando, did you have a question?
Yeah, for the entrepreneurship classes, are those open to any major, or is that only the specific entrepreneurship major that you can take those classes?
No, they're absolutely open to anyone. In fact, probably about 70 to 75% of our students aren't College of Business students, because you can actually get a minor in innovation and entrepreneurship, which is our 5 classes. You come out of my class with a Blue Belt certification in innovation and entrepreneurship from the Innovation Engineering Institute. And then when you finish the minors, the 5 classes, you can then do the work and turn in the work to get your black belt in innovation engineering from the Innovation Engineering Institute. And that's a minor that you can do.
Thank you.
All right, any more questions, guys? I think y'all covered so much. I don't know what else to ask, but this is all really exciting. I had no idea UNA was, doing so much, both on the tech side of the house and also the entrepreneurship and business side. So I think that's really exciting, and I think a great final Tuesday talk for our program as well, because y'all really brought together just a lot of different things that students can do in data, and a lot of the different things that we've talked about through this program kind of in one place. So anyway.
And feel free, if any of you are thinking about wanting to come do a tour or come to UNA and see what we're doing, please feel free to reach out to myself or Dr. Florin. We would love to take you on a personal tour around, get to know some of the students and the other professors, see some of our labs, our new computer science building that's opening up this fall, and just give you that little personal touch if you'd like to come up.
How would I contact for one of those tours?
can
Because
just
I'm
reach
trying
out
to
to
sign
either
up
one
for
of
a
us.
lot of tours.
Yeah,
So-
you can just reach out to us and we'll work with you to get that set up. We've got ambassadors, they're called our Sanders College of Business Technology ambassadors, which are students, usually juniors and seniors, that would be assigned to you to take you on the tour. Then you'd come meet with us and we'd take you up, meet the dean, and just any other information that you'd like. So feel free to reach out to us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Also
and-
dropped our emails in the chat. You can speak with Kelsey about getting contact information as well.
Mhm.
Whatever is most convenient for y'all. But yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us or really anyone, and we'd be happy to get you a free lunch or something while you're on campus. Might as well.
Man, y'all got all the perks. Free lunch, good scholarships. Oh my goodness. No, thank y'all so much. This was wonderful. I also had no idea UNA was doing sports analytics too. We heard from Samford earlier in the program, so it's neat to hear of another, kind of an alternative program doing that in Alabama. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it's fun.
yeah, thank you guys so much. This was fantastic. We really appreciate y'all's time, and I will share out this recording with everybody after this as well. So thank y'all
Fantastic.
very much.
Thank
Thanks
y'all.
again.
Have a Great day.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.